Welcome to Number the Days channel and another exciting calendar study. It's week 12 and a huge week from a prophecy perspective. Big. The calendar places Jesus Yeshua in this week in his first year of ministry standing up and reading the Isaiah 61 text of the acceptable year of Yah. This acceptable year is complete with miracles, healings, and the revelation of our loving Father who is fulfilling his oath starting on Shabuoth through his Son's ministry on earth. Be sure to watch all the bonus material in this video because we're going to overlap Daniel chapter 9's prophecy of the Messiah with the events on the calendar this week. Be sure to watch this video with the one on the Feast of Shabuoth we just released and also the Paleo-Hebrew word study on Shabuoth coming out this week too. They all tie together. It's so exciting. That acceptable year of Yahuwah ends with Acts chapter 2 and the giving of the power of the Ruach HaKodesh. You know, Pentecost, Feast of Weeks, or the Feast of Joy in Shavout. So enjoy the ride. Let's get started.
Hello there, this is Joshua, your host for this week. It's an interesting week. We are in the 78th day of the year, the 12th week, 4th day of the week, and Noah's still getting rained on, 32nd day of 40 days and nights. And we've got that a few days of nothing but Noah. Of course, we're going to have him for a year. All right, on the Sabbath. Day 35 of 40 for Noah. Year 1 in the Messiah in synagogue reading the Isaiah scroll. We're going to have a little bonus section on this at the end and another bonus section on Daniel. Okay, Yahusha goes in and he starts reading in the synagogue, proclaims the acceptable year of Yahweh. This is not a Jubilee announcement as many may think. Notice how he has just proclaimed the fields are ready for harvesting a few days earlier. This is the Feast of Shabuoth. His work in this acceptable year results in a year later the restoration of the Ruach and the fulfillment of the power and promise from Father in Acts 2. We will review some of the scriptures in the bonus section. The next day, Moses is at top of the mountain receiving Torah written by Elohim. Moses spends 40 days and 40 nights on top of Mount Sinai. He receives the entire book of Jubilees. As it actually says, this is when it was given to Moses. Next day, Yehuda is circumcised. Jubilees. Noah's in day 37 of 40 days of rain. And the next day, another day of rain. Okay, now we get to the bonus section. So you have to realize that on this week's calendar, Yahusha and his disciples left Jerusalem to go north to Galilee on the first Sabbath after Shabuoth, or the Feast of Weeks. Yahusha is reading from the Isaiah 61 scroll what he will be doing in his earthly ministry during the next physical year of time. We have studied the 70-week ministry of Messiah per Michael Rood's Chronological Gospels book. He did an excellent work of piecing and matching the scripture events in the Gospels. We do not follow the Jewish lunar calendar, but his chronology is still applicable. We have used it as best we can, placing dates on the ancient biblical 364-day calendar. This is a breakdown comparison between Isaiah and Luke. And in Luke, and he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and stood up for to read. And there was delivered unto him the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, The Spirit of Elohim is upon me. In Isaiah, the Spirit of the Lord Elohim is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. Isaiah, because Yahweh hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. Luke, he has sent me to heal the brokenhearted. Isaiah, he has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted. Luke, to preach deliverance to the captives, and Isaiah, to proclaim liberty to the captives. Now, some teachers promote the theory that Yahusha read the scroll on the Day of Trumpets, month 7, day 1. Jubilee years are announced at the Feast of Trumpets, which is still months away on our calendar. Michael Rood's book pins this event to the Sabbath after the Feast of Weeks. Consider in the next bonus section how Daniel's prophecy is all about the words translated weeks. Daniel's prophecy of 62 weeks overlaps with the Feast of Weeks, Shabuoth, because the Messiah came when Daniel prophesied and performed actions to fulfill the promises from Yahweh. This is missing in the Masoretic text, but it is in the LXX, so it once had to be in the Hebrew Tanakh, and it was removed by the Masoretes. And recovering of sight to the blind. What is someone trying to keep you from seeing? Isaiah, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to set at liberty them that are bruised. Isaiah, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahweh. Luke, to preach the acceptable year of Yahweh. For year, this is the word for a literal year of time. The acceptable word is H7522, goodwill, favor, acceptance, will, desire, wish. So it could say to preach the favorable year of Yahweh. And it is not the Jubilee announcement period of month 7, day 1. What happens a year later from this time on the calendar? Acts 2 happens, according to Scripture. The disciples who receive power from on high and go and continue to proclaim Yah's word in power and boldness, the fulfilling of receiving the Ruach HaKodesh and power for healing and miracles. Yahusha stopped reading here. He did not read the rest of verse 2. He knew before his ministry what was going to happen. Isaiah also had, and the day of vengeance of our Elohim, to comfort all that mourn. In Luke, and he closed the book, and he gave it again to the minister, and sat down, and the eyes of all them that were in the synagogue were fastened on him. The Feast of Weeks, Shabuoth, is all about oaths and covenant, and their fulfillment and confirmation. Be sure to watch our video on this Moedim feast. In Luke 4:21 he says, And he began to say unto them, This day is this scripture fulfilled in your ears. If you are brand new to the ancient biblical 364-day calendar, please see our playlist on the calendars we sell. The ancient Israelites kept a solar-based 364-day calendar. When the Jews returned to Jerusalem after exile in Babylon, the calendar was switched to the Babylonian lunar calendar. Our weekly teachings from the calendar are based upon the ancient one, where we have placed all the events of Scripture onto the calendar using Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the canon of Scripture. This approach allows us to do studies like this where we view all the events through time and how they overlap and connect. Now, bonus 2. So in Daniel 9, there is no date as to pin when he got the prophecy of the Messiah's appearance in our year, so I am adding it here, since he revealed himself openly this week on the calendar by reading his Isaiah scripture. 9:24 of Daniel. 70 weeks, and pay attention to the colors, are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression, and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Okay, in the Yehudiath of the Masoretic text, the first two words are identical. Sevens, sevens. There is a specific word for week. It has an extra letter over the word for seven, of wa, vav in Yiddish. This is not that word. The wife's comments. So in the Yehudiath of the Masoretic text, the first two words are identical. Shin bet ayin yod mem. This word is plural of the root shin bet ayin, which means seven. The specific word for weeks includes the sixth letter of the aleph bet and is spelled shin bet va ayin, which is not the actual word in the Masoretic text. So while it is not the exact word for week, H7620, so while related, it is not the exact word for the week, H7620. So we are unclear how they knew it was 77s, but we know now through fulfillment it was. Maybe in the original Yehudiath there was a difference. This is how I see the breakdown. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Notice the color. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. This actually says 7 sevens and 2 sevens. These weeks are just 69 sevens, same word as above, out of the 70 total, to leave room for the Ruach Spirit to work, confuse, and cause delusion. It was a total of 483 years from the declaration in 457 BC from Artaxerxes' decree to the fall of 26 AD when Yahusha is baptized by John the Immerser, the true and last high priest before Yahusha, and declared him the Messiah. And Yahusha then heads to the desert. Now, and after 62 sevens, again not the word for weeks, but sevens, shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, overflow. And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. Now this 62 weeks, sevens, are not the same as this 62 weeks. If you have seen a description in Michael Rood's book, The Chronological Gospels of Yahusha's 70-week ministry explanation, it perfectly fits the 62 weeks of, let's say, earthly ministry. Cut off after 62 sevens, Rood gets 70 weeks by continuing his ministry to the Pentecost in Acts after his resurrection. You get the 62 sevens by going from his baptism on page 71 as the start of his ministry to page 198, starting the 63rd week. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Just a future note here, consummation, you want to study that word and where it's used and what it means. Now, we are seeing truth. The week words in blue are the word for week, H7620. He was crucified on a Wednesday, the 4th and middle day of the week in 28 AD. This is the 70th seven, the 70th week, and it is fulfilled and over. There is no waiting for a 7-year end-time period by an Antichrist. That is Jesuit deception started by Francisco Ribera, 1585. Here is a link to an article on when a 3.5-year ministry was first created by Francisco Ribera, re-engineered prophecy to deflect attention from Rome. We do not believe his ministry was 3.5 years. You can read more about this here. I hope you have enjoyed this week's reading, and may El Elyon show you favor. Shalom. Now I'm showing you here an extra chart. The wife wanted this so that she could understand it better. All of these items here, I believe, are brought in actually during Passover week when he's crucified. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. This is 69 weeks, as said before, 69 sevens. This ends up being 483 years. It leaves 1 7 left. Now we get to, okay, the Messiah came. He got here. Now, after 62 weeks, the wife added this here because she sees it in the Masoretic text that there is a "the" there, but it is not referring to the previous 62 weeks. Shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. This occurs in the 63rd week of his ministry and the final 70th seven. And the people of the prince that shall come, that shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be a flood, overflow of warriors. And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. This is a future prophecy for what happens after the 77s, and Daniel 9:24 prophecy is complete. This was done by the Romans in 68 to 70 AD. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for one literal 7-day week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations. He shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So the 63rd seven, per Michael Rood's chronology, 63rd week, is a physical 1 week starting from entry into Jerusalem on a donkey to his resurrection. The oblation that ceases is when the temple is damaged. Now, I hope that helps you understand that when you hear a prophecy of, there's 7 years left for the Antichrist, the very sentence, the very verse they are claiming is a 7-year period in the end times, that week is the word for a 7-day week. So, hope that clears things up. May I be with you.